Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the second iteration of the BFA Talks. In this iteration, we're having the 3D students, so really excited to hear them speak. The 2D students did an excellent job on Tuesday. If you didn't get a chance to hear their talk, the gallery is going to be posting the 2D and the 3D talks online at the end of this. So it's been a pleasure to work with this group and to see the transformation that they all have gone through from art students to artists. And I think you'll get a sense of that today when they're talking about their work, that we have a huge variety of approaches, concepts, projects that they're going to be telling you about. They'll each be introducing themselves and their work to you. So I'm going to turn it over now to Claire.
Thank you, Deborah. Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Bellock, and today I'll be talking about my installation, Behavioral Sync. But before I get into that, I just really wanted to say that it's been so wonderful working with all the BFA students here. They all have such creative and talented minds, and I really think that if you haven't come to see the show in person yet, I really recommend it, because there's a lot of works in here that seeing it on Zoom and seeing pictures really doesn't do it justice. So if you haven't come in, I highly recommend it. And
Thank you, I said that last time.
Yes, no problem. So without further ado, I would like to talk about my installation, Behavioral Sync. And the way I wanted to get started was talking about how the rats started and why I started making them. So I started making clay rats in 2019, before the pandemic had happened. And obviously that has turned into my entire body of work. As an artist, I have always had this internal battle of wanting to make something that is aesthetically pleasing and shiny and people think it's pretty, but I've also wanted to make things that are just completely terrifying and morbid and really, really weird, honestly. And I figured if you can make almost anything out of clay, there had to be a way for me to achieve both of these desires that I have. I received my Bachelor's of Psychology from Arizona State in 2019 as well. So I'm always trying to find ways to incorporate psychology or sociology into my artwork as well. So for this installation, I did a good amount of my own research regarding psychology and sociology. And I found that there are similarities between the social pathology of vermin and the social pathology of disease. And this is what has fueled the inspiration for Behavioral Sync. I will talk about this research in a little bit, but first I wanted to discuss why I chose rats in the first place and why they are residing inside bathroom fixtures. So what really kept me going the last 2.5 years making rats without really finding any meaning in them was the reactions that I would get from people who saw them. It was either people thinking they were really cute or people thinking that they were repulsive, honestly. And sometimes it was a combination of the two of them. But these opposing reactions were very important to me because I want my art to provoke thought and create discussion. I figured having two opposing reactions to what I'm making would be a good starting point for that. So to maintain this balance of charm and fear that the rats have, I tried to keep the claws and the teeth of the rats looking soft. I tried not to make them too sharp, but at the same time, I added these colors of brown and red to resemble the filthiness and the violence that rats can exhibit sometimes. And in the context of my installation, I'm using the rats to represent COVID-19. And I believe this is an effective representation because the very existence of the rat can threaten the mental and physical well-being of society. That and the fact that everyone has to work together to get rid of them. According to the New York Department of Health, if you have a rat infestation, it's no longer a you problem. If your neighbor has a rat infestation, it's no longer their problem. It is a community problem that everybody has to work together to resolve. Otherwise, the extermination will not be successful. So the symbolism of the sink and the bathtub, I believe, are pretty clear. They are the cleanliness. They are the lack of disease. They are the safe space in which COVID should not exist. I wanted to disturb that space, not necessarily as an invasion of privacy, but more a threat to the audience's well-being. And the mirror serves as a reminder to self-reflect and ask yourself how you feel about these rats being inside this so-called sanitized space. The symbolism of these bathroom fixtures were inspired by the Georgian era, which lasted from 1714 until 1830. I learned that having a bathroom like this would be extremely rare in this era, and there is no toilet because even for the richest of the rich people that would have a bathroom like this, the toilet was usually outside. So that is why my installation lacks a toilet. The materialism of the bath and the sink itself also embodies this high-class ascendancy without me making it intentional. So the silver color that you see down on the claw feet of the bathtub and then also on the faucet and the faucet handles of the sink is made from luster. It's a ceramic overglaze and it costs about $35 for a little tiny 2-gram bottle. I had to buy 8 of these bottles just to cover these tiny little accents of color. So this literally did become a rich man's bathroom without me really meaning it to be, which I just found is very interesting. And it's something I didn't realize until installation, honestly. So now I wanted to get into the research that I'd done to fuel the ideas that I had for behavioral sync. So I'm going to start with information that I acquired previous to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, most of my research consisted of John B. Calhoun's Mouse Utopia experiment. For those who are not familiar, Calhoun was a 20th century sociologist, and his test subjects were rats. He used rats to measure the psychological effects of overpopulation and overcongestion. He used the white Norway rat, which is why I coded my rats with white slip, because I wanted at least one part of this installation to tribute to Calhoun, because his experiment was the first research I'd done where I found meaning in the rats that I was making. So I at least wanted to tribute part of my installation to Calhoun. Although I will say that while this was a great starting point for my research, this experiment does not reflect the overall installation. This installation is not about overpopulation. However, I wanted to mention it because this is where the term behavioral sync comes from. Behavioral sync is the title of my installation, and it is defined as a collapse in behavior that has been triggered from overcrowding or overcongestion. This was monitored by measuring the behaviors of the rats as the population increased. And as the population increased, delinquent behaviors increased as well. So, like I said, while my installation is not about overpopulation, I found behavioral sync to be a very appropriate title because It reflects the impact that crisis has on moral decay. And what do I mean by moral decay in this context? Well, I'm hoping that my next part of research will help explain that. According to Lisa Sarason, the author of Getting Under Our Skin, ideas of hygiene and class hierarchy in the 18th century Britain had a very big impact on attitudes towards vermin and attitudes towards disease. It was in the Georgian era that I mentioned earlier when this happened, and the Industrial Revolution increased class division, and it also increased racial inequality. This was also when bedbugs, lice, and rats were increasing in infestations in Europe. The scientific research that went into understanding this was searching for truth, but it really reflects racism of its time. And it became a very reassuring fact to Europeans that only foreigners or the poor could have lice, fleas, rats, or illness in general. In 1845, it was scientist Andrew Murray who wrote to Charles Darwin in regards to a lice study that Murray did in South Africa. Murray wrote to Darwin, quote, "The fact that races of man, being infested by parasites which appear to be specifically distinct, might fairly be urged as an argument that races themselves ought to be classified as distinct species." The people who lived in this region had no lice on their body whatsoever. They wore no clothes, and the women shaved their heads. The men, while they had long hair, they covered their hair in animal fat and red ochre. So it was physically impossible for lice to inhabit the bodies of these people as hosts. In addition to that, during the rise of the British Empire, nearly every region that was conquered was seen as uncivilized, and they were continuously blamed for the presence of vermin and disease in Britain during the Georgian era. We saw very similar instances during our current pandemic. Donald Trump repeatedly referred to COVID-19 as the Chinese virus, while Asian American hate crimes increased daily in the United States. Matteo Salvini, the former Prime Minister of Italy, correctly linked COVID to African asylum seekers, and that resulted in more intense border control. And all of that information that I stated since Behavioral Sync, I would like to credit to Sarason in her book, Getting Under Our Skin. So just to wrap things up, I wanted to bring attention back to the mirror. And like I said earlier, the mirror is an opportunity to self-reflect, but it's also an opportunity to ask yourself the questions from my artist statement. How do you feel about people who fall victim of plagues, of vermin, of disease? Are they dirty, poor, foolish, or just unlucky? What do responses to invasive threats to our well-being say about us as a society? I believe pandemics have brought out the best and also the worst in people. And I think it's really important to recognize the shared vulnerability that comes with disease. The stigma of COVID-19 is one of the leading social stigmas in our current society. And the ongoing crisis has provided a lens for us to challenge America as a post-racial society. I would like to see my work as an opportunity to challenge this notion as well through the reactions of the audience and also through the questions that people ask themselves after viewing. And with that being said, that's all the research that I have for you guys today, and I'd like to open Q&A for any questions or comments you guys have for me.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I was wondering what artist really inspired you upon all of this, besides your own skill, which is pretty impressive from my opinion.
Thank you. So for me, it was mostly Anthony Gormley and Mary J. Bowl. Anthony Gormley is a ceramic artist, and he works to create multiples. He creates these figures that he pinches. He makes it in just a few pinches from his hand, and it's supposed to resemble the human figure, and he makes it by reaching out to communities and asking them to help with this. And he's done exhibitions where he presents these figures in the thousands, sometimes up to 35,000 figures at one time. And it was the intensity of the stare from these figures that really made me want to create something for multiples as well. And then also seeing Mary J. Bowl's work, she did the Eastern State Penitentiary exhibition where she examined the sanitization of bathrooms within the penal function. And she did this by making bronze casts of toilet seats, and she made her own bathroom fixtures because all the ones that were originally there were gone. So I really love both of their works. So I channeled a lot of their ideologies while I was making this as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Or
Either one.
when creating all the rats, was there a purpose or kind of idea of like personalizing them, because they all have just such unique personalities and they're all very, expressive in how they are? Does that reflect, your decisions?
Yeah, definitely. For one, I will admit it is very difficult to make something that is identical. It's hard to make the rats all look the same. So I figured embracing this imperfection and making some of them kind of look like they're playing, maybe making some of them look like they're fighting, some of them look hungry. And I thought this would just bring a liveliness to the fact that these are stationary rats. They're not moving. So I wanted to make them look as, not as realistic as possible, but I wanted them to make them look like they were actually alive, if that makes sense. But it was really fun to make each of their faces individually and kind of give each of them a personality as well. Some of my friends have asked if they can name themselves after the rats, so it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
How do you feel? Because I've watched, or just watching people walk through the gallery, it's very interesting to see people, like you said, kind of see themselves and associate themselves with a lot of the rats inside. What do you think about that kind of process or that experience?
So the main message I guess I'm trying to make here is that no one is more or less likely to catch a disease or become infested with vermin due to their ethnicity or due to their class status. So I think when people identify with the rats and see themselves in them, I find that, I guess I find it effective because I guess I'm trying to say that we're all the same. We're all made of the exact same materials, just like these rats are. And I guess identifying them would help express my meaning of equality, if that makes sense.
I was curious what led you to this type of art and also this style of art. What's your journey been?
Honestly, I have really always loved Halloween, and the way that this started was in my ceramic professor Brad Taylor's class, we're asked to choose an object of obsession that we are going to work from for the entire semester. It was September, and that's around the time I start getting excited for Halloween. So I started buying Halloween decorations, and I had a bunch of really weird, creepy stuff around my house. And one of those things was a little tiny plastic rat. And I remember when I had this idea, there was a board in the studio counting all the rats that people have actually seen in the studio. And something just told me in that moment that, like, you need to make rats. I really don't know what it is, but the fact that those two things lined up in the exact same moment told me you really should keep going with this. You may not find meaning in it at first, but you will eventually. So I'm really glad I did. So thank you for the question, Anna.
I have a question. Your advisor, Brad Taylor, worked at Kohler, as we know, big sink and toilet and so forth manufacturer. Did you get any advice about the bathtub? Were there any technical difficulties?
The first piece of advice I received was don't make it too big. I wanted to make it full size. Right now, I'd say it's slightly smaller than full size. I'm very happy with the scale of it, but I definitely don't think it's a full size bathtub. So that was the first piece of advice I received. I was told that only the top 5 ceramic artists in the world are able to make a full size bathtub from hand and have it be successful. That was the first piece I received. And the second, I would say, is just honestly the pinching method that I was taught from Brad Taylor. It's a method used in ceramics. It's a building method. Instead of the coils where you add coil by coil and add them all together, you slowly pinch your clay up. And I think that was very successful for this piece because it provides a lot of structural support when you're building large scale sculpture.
I'm not a ceramicist, but you've captured the materiality of like the tub and the sink. It looks like porcelain and it has this weight to it, and I'd love to know about even the mirror too, like it has this reflective surface. So I'd like to know about your choice of glazes and how you got to deciding on that.
Yeah, so the white shiny gloss you see on the bathtub and the sink are actually not glaze. I would have liked them to be glazed, but my sink had a couple blowouts where the clay body just blew off here. So I had to epoxy it back on, and then I added Bondo to seal the cracks. And once you add materials like epoxy or Bondo, the piece can't go back in the kiln. You can't reheat those kind of materials. So because of that, I could not add glaze. And I took this opportunity to really make these look like bathroom fixtures because I bought Culture Hustle's Whitest White Paint, White 2.0, because I really felt like ceramic glaze would not be able to achieve this white of a color. Ceramic glaze, while I might be able to figure it out someday, I have not yet. It's usually more of an off-white color, which would not have been a bad choice, but overall, I think the accident with the sink was a good thing because without that happening, I wouldn't have achieved this this really, really white color that adds contrast to the rats. And then nothing happened to the bathtub, thankfully. No cracks, nothing, but I wanted them to match in color. So that is why I went with the white 2.0 and then the glossy varnish on top for the bathtub as well. And then the luster is just so beautiful, I couldn't resist. And I figured Duncan makes a white gold luster, which is the one you're looking at now. It comes out silver, very similar to a faucet in an actual bathroom. So I really thought this was a good opportunity to bring luster, which I love, and then also use a very, very white paint.
Super quick question. Are the rats hollow or are they like just filled? Like, is it just clay?
They are currently hollow. I build them solid, and then once they harden, I cut them in half and I hollow them out. Mm-hmm.
what was the reason of the white pedestal?
So I originally wanted the bathtub on the ground actually, but then I walked in, I saw the gallery floor, and I didn't think it went well with a bathroom installation. So our professor Deborah actually recommended that I do lift it off the ground a little bit more to sort of make the viewer actually feel like they're inside a bathroom, because normally you'd have like pastel colored tiles or maybe white colored tiles underneath. So I thought the brown was just a little too unrealistic. Thank you. All right, thank you guys so much for the questions. I really appreciate it. We're gonna move on to Kang next, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry, we're moving on to Dylan.
I have my Bluetooth on. Hi, my name is Dylan Gomez. My work focuses around tidal movements within Kaneohe Bay. I wanted to articulate the way ocean tides sculpt and transform our marine ecosystems and coastlines. I created a site-specific installation that was placed in Kaneohe Bay. This is a two-part tool. So basically, the stick acts as a way to record decay. As the salty movement rises and falls each day, it leaves its marks, and it gives me an idea of where the tide is rising and falling most frequently. I used paint and minimal industrial materials because I didn't want to put too much material into the ocean and it be invasive. And I also wanted to play on the idea of using these materials that are often found infringing on coastal ecosystems and reverse the way they read and have a new function for them. So the base is the second part of the tool, and this records growth. So I needed a site-specific area that I could place this, that it wouldn't be disturbed. I needed that, and it was very integral to my process because I needed the weathering effect. And the base records the algae growth. And about after 2.5 months, you start getting crustacean growth. And I thought this was important because it offers us a clue that the world's in a constant state of transformation, of decay and growth. Nothing stays the same. And I wanted to highlight these natural processes by using a marine installation. Tides rise and fall each day. They can be temperamental, soothing, calm, and destructive. They nurture life and also take it. They are reliable and consistent. I think tides are important to me because they show that there's something bigger than just individuality and our daily lives, that we're all small individual puzzle pieces to a larger complex puzzle of life. The second part of my project, which I thought, I'm not a photographer, but I expanded my my tools in this project so I could really capture the dramatic changes in the tides. So starting from left, I captured low tide, and I think photography was important because it's one of the ways that you're able to see these dramatic shifts in the marine ecosystem. So this is an area, and this part kind of first drew me to this project because passing this every day, going to work and coming home, it really shows you like this intense shift in the environment. And if it's during mid-tide as a second picture, it kind of just gives you that feeling like it's an everyday feeling in Hawaii. You don't really see that dramatic shift. So it was really important for this first photo for me to have, because I think this is what really draws people to the project. And then this last photo is me just seeing the average tide height usually is around like 2 feet. It's an intertidal zone located in Kaneohe Bay. This is an area that fishermen, watermen use. And depending on the way the tides are rising or falling that day, dictates the movements of the people and the inhabitants. And then for my last piece was a sculpture. It was made out of cement. And again, I wanted to use cement as a way to articulate this infringement on coastal ecosystems with industrial material. I sculpted this out of clay, and then I did a plaster mold around it, and then cast in cement. One of the things I wanted to stay in tune with it throughout the whole project was a minimalistic feel. I never really wanted to take away from the overall message of tides and the way they transform our landscapes and the way we live on Earth. And I encountered a lot of issues in this project, not necessarily in the making or technical aspect, but in the way of finding a location. I didn't think it would be that difficult gaining public access to our water. And it was quite a journey, and it came pretty much the last 2 weeks before I needed to get it into the water that I found somebody, a harbor master for DLNR, that under the guise of scientific research was I able to get this installed. I encountered a lot of issues with me putting an art project in, which I thought was fascinating. You can get permits from any other things. You see people putting flotillas in the water, fishing, doing whatever they need to do. But when you wanted to put an art project in the water, it seemed like a very difficult process. And reaching out to organizations that support coastal erosion and sea level rise and climate change, they're the most apprehensive to me placing this in the water. So I thought that was an interesting off the path journey that I took that I wasn't expecting to encounter. So some of the biggest examples that I think kind of highlight coastal erosion and sea level rise is this area is the coast of Kualoa Point and Mokuli'i Island. So in this area from 1928, there has been a shoreline retreat of 400 feet. This is just one change. In other areas like Secret Island, you've seen 400 feet of sand added to the shoreline. So we're seeing these dramatic shifts, and they're a multi-pronged issue. There are obviously climate change, sea level rise, but there's also man-made interventions that are accelerating this issue, like seawalls, hardening of beach structures, and they accelerate this rapid change in coastal erosion. And then going back to this sculpture, this is based off historical mosaics by Soest. It's the coastal geology group at UH Mānoa. So I used their historical mosaics that are pieces of photos taken at topographical views that are pieced together. And this gives scientists the idea of trying to understand, okay, where are the sea level and coastline changing over time? So I used 3 maps, 1928, 2005, and 1998. And I kind of just created an interpretation of the coastline starting at Kualoa Point to Ka'ava. And this coastline is important to me because this is where I frequently visit with my family. This is where we do all of our activities. I live about 100 yards from the ocean. So we usually think about people just on beachfront properties, but not only does sea level rise and climate change affect them, but it inundates the water. And so when it rains, you're more likely to have flooding happen quicker because the land is oversaturated. And this causes more problems. And living on an island, I think we all need to be aware of the way the ocean and tides sculpt our land. And it's something to think about moving forward. Some of the artists that I drew inspiration from was a past graduate, Jenna Macy. She created a tool to interact with her environment. And I thought it really pushed me to think about how I can take my art outside of the studio, work in another place, and then come back and contextualize that to fit a gallery setting. And I thought I really wanted to push myself that semester and think more conceptually. And this work is also a response to the pandemic. Being pushed out of your studio and having less time to work on your technical skills made me really rely on more concept. And this work is really a testament to Jose Ferreira and Mary Babcock. Taking their classes during the pandemic really allowed me to have a lot of agency about what projects I wanted to pursue. And they created an infrastructure allowing me to take risks. And I think that was important because most of my technical skills are in ceramics and I never really got to display them. So I feel like having them to lean on really helped me have a successful exhibition. And I just want to say thank you to them. And yeah, I just wanted to open up to any questions the audience had.
So I know you said you're not a photographer, but your photographs are really beautiful, and I'd love to know if you were inspired by photographing in a certain way, like compositionally, and if you want to continue photography like this, maybe environmental photography later on in your artistic practice.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I didn't really get to say, but photography is able to capture these changes that you really can't see of this red light reflecting. So it allows me to really take hold of what's going on in the environment. And it's really more important. I think this is the most important thing more than the sculpture and the installation, because this really speaks to what message I'm trying to say. So yeah, I would like to continue on photography. This is more of a digital aspect in image capturing than it was like production and more of a traditional photography. Something to start and build on.
Do you have future plans for your installation piece? Are they going back into the ocean or will the ocean?
That's a good question. I was trying to expand on it and think if I could use the base as a way and kind of interchange these sticks. So my original plan was to have all 4 east, west, south, north, and have a pole in each area. But I mean, I encountered this complex mold making with the cement, and this is over 250 pounds. So I'm like, I think one thing I would want to do is get better at producing these, so it's more of a practical idea of like really transporting them and installing them. So I think this one's going to stay at home and then try to build upon that. Yeah, definitely.
I was wondering about your process of actually getting this thing into the water. You said it's pretty heavy, so I'm just wondering, like, how did you carry it across the sand and actually get it to the spot you wanted it to?
Good question. So that's another interesting way of working with the tides, because they really, like, I want to be poetic and say they dictate movements, but they really did in this case. I really had to be aware when the lowest low tides were, and I had to walk in this area, get in the water, and find a little path that was rocky enough to support this weight. And I used a trolley, and it was a very painstaking thing, and it was one of the most stressful experiences because I didn't even know if I could get it in the water, let alone retrieve it 3 months after. Yeah.
Speaking of getting it in the water, I just want to know what were some of the main kind of reasons you were faced with, or opposing forces you were faced with in trying to get it. Like, what were the reasons behind not getting it?
Oh, well, in the beginning, I think they were having a hard time understanding what I wanted to do, why you would want to play something for an art show, and also that it was not painted and it was just a mock-up of a cardboard, and they really, I don't think they could understand what I really wanted. And then on top of that, it was much easier for them to nicely say no, because there's a lot of legal issues about if this thing was to maybe fall over, hit somebody, damage something, then they're liable. So it was just a quick, it was the easy way of just quickly passing me to another person. And that's kind of what I was encountering. And one of the most, I think, ones that I really wanted was Kualoa Ranch, and they did not want to work with me because they felt like they didn't have the permits, and it kept getting bounced around. Well, this is the city's problem. Well, no, this is the state or this is a federal area. So it's like trying to understand like which areas, who owns what.
I want to follow up on that a second because you haven't shown us the book. So the book was
yeah.
a lot about the bureaucracy. And related to that, during this semester, you did some research on the history of public works and earthworks and people like Christo and Jean-Claude and the kind of permissions they had to get and Smithson. So I'm wondering if like you want to talk a little bit about this book and your conceptual idea behind the book, and also that legacy of earthworks that came before you.
So Christo and okay, what's the other name? John Claude, yeah. I know, okay. All right. So I know
That they worked together to get those permissions.
I think understanding them after, because before the work, I didn't have a deep understanding of them. And then briefly, like touching on their work and seeing what they had to go through, I can see like, if you really want to get something out in a public way, there is a lot of red tape. And they gave me some inspiration to keep moving forward. And I think my work relates more with Smithson and having to rely on other people to create this artwork. And that's where I kind of see the similarities. And yeah, I put together this little book, and it has about like 15 different emails in it, reaching out to the Marine Corps base, Kualoa City and County. And I think this was important because, again, this is a concept, and a lot of the technical aspects you don't see. It's a lot of the behind the scenes work that I did that it was very hard to articulate. So I thought the best thing was to put a binder together and block out everybody's like personal contacts and show our intimate messaging that we had. Because I had to work with a coastal geologist, I had to work with DLNR, and it was a collaboration from a lot of different disciplines to get this done. And thinking about other artists that had to go through this, I thought this was an important process to kind of articulate and show in this exhibition.
So you mentioned that you weren't really like doing photography before this, and you hadn't really experimented too much with the cement work. What's kind of your artistic background, and how did you end up here doing the two things that you didn't know before?
So a lot of my stuff started with clay, like I was saying, and I ran an encounter that sculpture classes don't really pertain to that. It's a lot of hard metals and soft sculpture. So I had to really dig deep and think about some of the materials I wanted to interact with. And Jose really helped me think about cement in a new way. And I felt like I really needed to make a sculpture that worked with clay because it's something that I'm fond of, and it's something that is at the core of who I am as an artist. And I wanted to kind of just take a risk and use new materials. And I don't think I'm answering your question correctly, but yeah, I mean, I think I can go back a little bit more. This thing started in 2020. So I did a mini installation with a very small stick and took a couple photos. And that's kind of where everything originated from. And I saw that if I can use different tools and combine them, I feel like I can really create something special that's very well-rounded. And it's not against someone just using one medium. It's just something personally that I feel like you can have access to more at your disposal. That's all. Any other questions?
Hello. Hello, my name is Kang Hyun Soo. I'm going to take over the camera for a second. Can I zoom in on this? Can I zoom in? No. Not. Hi, hi everyone. My name is Kang Hyun Soo. It's a Korean name. My grandpa gave me this name when I was born, and it's my last name first, and then his first name, and that's how it's supposed to be written and spelled. So I'm going to talk about my life. I mean, before I talk about what this art is about, I want to talk about my life a little bit. So um, I feel like all my life I've been told what to do, and then I had to listen to people. For example, in the elementary school, middle school, high school, I had to listen to the teachers, and then I had to listen to my parents. And then I went to the college, and then I wanted to do the art, but then my parents they didn't want me to do the art. Instead, they want me to study ultrasound. So why? Because it's after you study ultrasound, you get a stable job, and then that she think that's happy life for me. That's what she decided for me. So I studied that, and then surprisingly, after that, nobody wanted to give me a job. They required experience to get a job, but then I'm trying to get experience after I get a job, but then they require experience, so I couldn't get a job. So, and then I went to the army, and then for 4 years, and stationed in Hawaii, and during that time, I think I lost myself, and then I was, I don't know, my life wasn't happy, and then I was doing something that I didn't want it to do. So after I got out of the military, I decided to do what I wanted to do before. And then that's why I decided to major in art. So what this art is about is I made what I wanted to make, which is bottles that have some of the abstraction, minimalistic quality, and it's something that is fun, cute, and catchy. So if you look it up in the dictionary, Oxford Dictionary in the library for the meaning of art, they will give you about 3 page worth of definition about art. Basically, what is art is basically it's whatever humans make in this world. So everything you see is art. But for my definition, I decide to define art as making something that I want to make and then finding happiness out of it. So why is happiness so important? Greek philosopher Aristotle, so what's the meaning of life? Yeah, nobody knows the meaning of life while we're living. But yeah, the Greek philosopher Aristotle, he said, people are living, the purpose of living is for the happiness. And then that when I read that, I think that influenced me a lot. And then I decided to find my own happiness through art. And then, yeah, I had some depression issue in the society. So I talked to my psychologist about my depression, and then she kept asking me what I want to do. What do you like to do? And then I think about it, and then I say I like making ceramics. It didn't really hit me hard in the beginning, but as I'm making ceramics over 2 years period of time, I finally realized that this was the meaning of life, doing something that I want to do, which was making ceramic, and then finding happiness out of that. So it's very simple thing, you could say, but in reality, it wasn't so simple. So a lot of obstacles are there to do this. Just making art, it's not easy. Like, for example, money, and then money is a big issue. And then other thing is like people ask you, oh, what about the family? What about the society? What about the environment? What about the country? What about your dog? And then they ask you, do you think people don't want to do that? They don't want to find happiness? You think it's easy? Some stuff like that. However, I didn't want to make the same mistake again. So that's why I ignored everything and then focused on myself. I have billions of atoms and molecules inside me. I'm a universe itself. So as you. So my life and my happiness is what's the most valuable thing for me. So, and then the reason why I chose ceramic is because I think the ceramic is very special. It has first of all, the bottles, they don't have any like a narrative content or significant meanings behind these bottles. However, they're like cozy, and they're it's very therapeutic while I'm making the ceramics. And the other aspect of making ceramics is like it's hard to master. There's randomness in making ceramic. Even my professor, who spent more than 30 years in making ceramic, would not guess what comes out of the kiln next day. So a lot of things, randomness happens depending on the glaze, clay body, glazing and clay body. Sometimes the firing, even one dip of glaze, two dip of glaze is different. And then one dip 3 seconds, one dip 5 seconds, 10 seconds, it will be all different, slightly different. And then I use that, it's kind of randomness, use those randomness to have something that is one of a kind. And then during this semester of the BFA time, the BFA show is important, but my priority was to make as much as possible and then experiment and gain knowledge through making a lot of ceramic and trying different techniques. So I tried all different techniques that I could think of, and then all different glazes. So different clay body, different techniques such as raku firing, high fire, and then we have some high fire that is in the electric kiln. So I trying to gain more knowledge and database to increase the chance of getting a great piece. And other randomness that excites me is like there's other randomness that like a first day I take it out of kiln, and then this one piece might look great, and then the other piece might look so not appealing. However, like a couple days later, the other piece that was not appealing would grow on me. And then, for example, this piece, I didn't like this piece in the beginning, and I thought it was kind of ugly. But as days go by, like 2 days later, it grew on me, and then I think this is so beautiful now. So some technique like this one, I use a thick glaze of Shino, and then I found out that if you have there's thing called Shino under or be cursed. So and then people will get that. Some people will get that, but I wanted to try and have something under Shino, and then what it did was it burns out. So I use that effect to burns out something. So there's some oxides underneath, and then I put a thick Shino blade on top of that to have that random effect. And then the raku itself is, you cannot control anything, and then you just let it happen. You literally throw it in the trash can while it's burning hot, and then you pick it up out of the trash can, and all these colors and textures is based on luck. So in order to get a good piece, I have to make a lot. That's one of the reasons I made a lot too. And then some shyness, different color. All these pieces in this shelf are one glaze. It's called black luster. However, you could see the green, you could see blue, red, pink, and all these rainbowish color, some scratches, some burnt bubbles, like a burnt flavor. And then I want to show one of my favorite pieces, which are the glazed in white. It's just a plain white glaze over dark clay, black mountain clay. And then, yeah, there's another aspect of randomness that shows these lines here. The start is unexpected. However, I think it looks great. And then this kind of drips. And all these are, you could say it's white, but it's slightly different white clay body. So yeah, I wanted to share this. And yeah, one of the important aspects is, I think it is about sharing. So I get really satisfied when I finally share my art. It's my expression to the society that this is me, my individuality and its uniqueness. That's what I want to know. And then whether, people like it or not, these ceramics gonna last millions of years. And then I think that is something that's cool. Thank you. Hi, do you guys have any questions? Hi, yes?
So with making all these pieces, you really were just trying to be happy making them, right?
Yes.
So are there any pieces here that made you feel any other kind of way? Maybe sad, angry? Is there anything here that made you, that was harder?
Made me upset? No. Not, I mean, so you get really satisfied when you're making the piece, and then you also get satisfied before you even see the piece, because while inside the kiln, nobody knows. And then I get so anxious, I get so, anxious and sometimes excited because of that. And then that itself is already kind of fun, you could say. And then you finally open the kiln and then you see something that you like, then it's so satisfying. I cannot describe enough. Out of that randomness, sometimes to get one of these, like I ruin a lot of pieces, but then, because they're like off balance. Something is just too much, sometimes something is off. You cannot control that. All these raku pieces, sometimes it come out ugly, but then I had fun making it, and then if not, I could refire the raku. And then I did a lot of refire on raku piece. And
So I just wanted to ask, you're talking about how before you started making art, you're living this life that made you very unhappy. So you started making art to make yourself happy. So what was it about clay specifically that satisfied that, as opposed to like painting or drawing?
painting, I originally wanted to be a painter. But then my girlfriend, she wasn't really good at drawing or painting. And then we take classes together, like every class we went through same stuff together. And then all of a sudden we did a ceramic. I think it's the randomness that got me, because I made something in the beginning. I made something very straight, and then it looked beautiful in the where it was a greenware. After I finished it, and then my girlfriend made something very sloppy, like a little bowl that is like, I would say it was like not professional, or I don't know. I thought it was not compared to mine. Mine was so beautiful, and then hers was so. Hers was, yeah, kind of like low quality. But then, however, after after we glazed it, and then after we took it out, initially I liked my piece, and then I didn't like her piece. Oh, okay, my pieces are still better than her. And then, like I said, something happened. 3 days later, maybe a week later, her piece just starting to shine, and it grew on me, and then my piece it just fades away, and then this that kind of thing was kind of amazing to me. So, yeah, there was randomness too, like a painting technique. You paint and then you get what you get. That could be, some people see that as a good thing, and then they like that, they want that. But then I don't think, for me, it's not as fun as having those luck or randomness involved. It's more satisfying when there's randomness and then you get something. It's like a, I don't know, lottery, maybe. Out this time.
Won the lottery.
And then, yeah. And then it's a 3D form rather than 2D. It could be 3D kind of quality, but then I want something that is 3D. And then, like I said, it will be here for millions of years, over a million years. Yes, it's fragile, but it will last long. It's like a kind of like graffiti or a corner box. It will last like 100 years. But I'm leaving something by legacy behind that will last so long. I think that's satisfying. Yes.
Question. Could you explain the reasoning of why you made those big pieces on the bottom? Because like they're very big in scale compared to smaller pieces, and I was wondering what your thought process.
My thought process is to try and make all different size. So even though all my pieces, I try to make it all different purposely. Some are purposely made same because I want some good pieces have two of them, so I could keep one and I could sell one. But then generally, I try all different shapes, even though like this one and this one is similar, it's different. I purposely try something different in here. And then this box to this box is different, like it's kind of more angle. This is taller compared to the size, I would say. And then, yeah, I try all different things. And then reason why I make big piece is also I wanted to try and see. That is one reason. And then I have to practice this while I'm in school, while I'm in BFA program. This is the best opportunity, and I want to squeeze every juice out of this ceramic program as much as possible. And then we have a Brad Taylor, who is our professor, who handles 1,000 kilograms of ceramic. It's a great place to practice these big pieces. It's not so big, but then it's pretty big, yeah. And then it's not completely great either. I made a lot of mistakes making this, and then I learned a lot. That's what I wanted to do. The show is important, but then finding out this experiment, trying out is number one priority. Why I'm in BFA. That's why I made it. I gotta try out and see how it is. Any other questions?
The audience.
Anyone has questions in the online?
Digital audience.
Just a lot of great comments. A lot of people love it.
Oh, thank you for the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And then I just wanted to say, yeah, this kind of yeah, I'm expressing myself, and then some people, yeah, they view it as it could be a little selfish, but then, like I said, I don't know. For me, I think finding happiness is I don't know. Is it selfish? What's your opinion? Is it a selfish thing? Is it an artist's duty to make something for the society, make something greater, rather than focusing just a personal happiness? But I think my happiness is more important. I'm sorry, but it's more important than your life, my life, my life.
Well, sometimes if you take care of your personal happiness, it's contagious, and then other people get happy as well.
And
So
then this kind of finding happiness, that's what I got inspired. I got inspired by this happiness. That's why it inspired me. I saw this video of people making, he's a ceramic, Lee Kang Hyun. You could find it on YouTube. He live somewhere in the countryside. He just make pot in a big pot, and then I just was so inspired by his life. It's not about money. It wasn't about money. It's just that he looked so happy just doing things what he do. And then other people like Henry Matisse, he does he got some sickness, and then on his hospital bed he still cut out stuff. Like that's what he liked to do. And then it's great art. I got inspired by those. And then this kind of thing, it touches people's heart, and I was touched by those things. Yeah, that's what I. Any more questions? Then thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Peichao Li. Today I'm going to talking about my works for the BFA exhibition. So my work called episode. So here we have 2 episodes here. So the first thing I'm talking about is the making process for my pieces. So for each piece, there are roughly 2,300 small, the little pixels of bricks here. So each piece was handmade by myself with a little bit different touch. So the whole process is very labor intensive. It takes just like everyone, from the beginning to the end of the semester till the last minute before the installation. So for each piece, I combine them together with something called thin set. It's for the ceramic tiles. So when I build them together, I feel like I had a lot of fun, but also feel like I'm not just doing artwork. It's the process, like constructing something, like build up something. So during this process, I'm thinking about construction. I'm also thinking about the architecture. It's because the process is not just the material I use. So this thing is like bricks, and the material I use is really for the construction for the house. And the other day I was talking with my professor. So he mentioned about something about the ceramic history, it's human history. But come to think about it, it's really echo with my thought about construction. So throughout our human history, people trying to make ceramics, making a lot of things, and then try to build a house. So what the purpose of a house? It's in the beginning for shelter and for protection, even nowadays. So if you stay at house, you feel relaxed, you feel happy. But come to think about it, there's a lot of things happen. You need to purchase a house through your hard labor. So during the process of the intensive hard labor, I build up these pieces. It's almost similar to people working very hard to earn to like build their house or try to purchase their house. So the thing is, people keep asking me, what's the meaning of these pieces? Why this color? So I pick this color is for me is a happy color or yummy color. So people look at it, say, oh, it's like candy. So I really like, the because the clay body I was using is low fire clay body. Usually people, I don't know, but I think most of ceramics, they try to use like high fire clay rather than the low fire but I really enjoy doing it with low fire because I can really get the color out of, the underglaze. So with the clear glaze over the top of the underglaze, I really get, the really bright and yummy color here. So I really enjoy doing that. The other thing I'm talking about is, though it's really very similar to construction, but each piece have my thing, my personal touch. I make it, with my hand, I give everyone a different touch. So they may look very similar, each piece, but actually everybody have their own personality, individuality. Each piece is unique, it's different. So it's also sometimes, it's like just like us. We're all human, right? But we're very different. Maybe you can group some, the red bricks together because we are all red, or some yellow together because you're yellow. But look carefully, so we're still different. We have our individuality, we have our own personality, but sometimes, all these things put together is like actually can group very well. We make, all of us, we're like we're different, but we make something as a group, like a BFA class. We're all different, but we're really very good group together. So it's this started with my obsession with pixels. So I didn't use the square shape of pixels, but instead I just tweak it a little bit, make it like little like bricks. So all this put together. So the other day also I like to talk with people. So somebody told me, so it's really with a frame, and then with all my pieces, he can tell it's like a pixel, like a screen, like a computer screen, and then all these pieces like pixel. And it's like sometimes there's randomness there. They try to figure out a certain pattern, and then they try to step far away and then come back close. But I guess nobody can figure out the pattern, really. But the thing is that's the point. So I want to draw people's attention to look at these little pieces and then step far away, try to figure out what happened here. Maybe at the end, maybe you couldn't figure out what happened, but maybe somebody can really see some pattern. But the thing is, like, I want them to enjoy that moment. So it's maybe look a little bit shallow about just fun and playful, just enjoy for that moment. But then I want to make point here is that moment, happy moment, fun moment is not that easy. So I can create this fun moment maybe for people to come to see it through my intensive labor, just like everyone else, through your intensive labor. You have a house, and then you have a place to feel like calm, to feel like relaxed. You can cheer, you can just be yourself. So it's maybe something look like a simple, like a playful, but it's not that simple. Yeah, it should be a lot of work, attached to these pieces, attached to everybody's happiness, the fun moment. So I also want to talking about some of my personal experience when making these pieces. And I work it from the beginning of semester till the end, right? During the making process, I got my physical issue because I hurt my back injured. So I have to tough it out, to standing there maybe like sometime maybe for over 10 hours to keep making. But I also think about it's hard, but it's fun because this is also the part of the the thing that help you create a moment, create your happiness, create your life, I guess. So actually I really enjoy just standing there and then just keep walking around and then making it. And then I found out actually just stay at school, keep working is maybe better for my back because I have to be moving around. I don't need to just sit for like a couple hours I have the time to walk around and to relax. And then while the making, I don't think anything, just like a moment of reflection or moment of just making myself feel more comfortable just making, I really enjoy doing that. So one of the other purpose I'm making the two pieces, I think about when people talk about ceramic, they think about something 3D, like pots, like a sculpture, like can standing up. So I just think about how about making something like a more flat, can be hanging on the wall. So I want to be like the 2D fitting is stronger than 3D fitting. We still have some volume here, but it's more like 2D pieces. And then it's really decorative because it's colorful. You can hang on the wall. Yeah. So look at these pieces. I really enjoy what I'm making. I purposely arrange the texture because, you know, if you see from the sideway, can you sideway here? You can see, you know, only the top of each bricks pixels is glazed and underglazed, but the side is like leave the rock clay color, so it can create a texture. And though it's like look very clean, layout very clean, but actually they have some, you know, displacement. You can see, you know, if you look from bottom to up, you can see some movement. The movement, I think, you know, you can see it's like I think it resembles the water flow here. And or like you can imagine it's especially this piece. I was thinking about, you know, making it. I want to water or like a group of fishes like swimming upward. Yeah. I didn't arrange any specific, you know, the pattern for this, but I want the pieces to be a little bit more abstract. So for each individual pieces, you know, the different color pieced together, like a little group, you can think of them as like a painterly brush stroke. So here. The next thing I'm talking about is my inspiration is from the artist. His name is Grayson Perry. So everybody know he makes some really beautiful pot, but it's so beautiful, very colorful. But so when you take a good look at them, and then because they're so colorful, so beautiful, so they draw your attention. You want to go and check it out. What happened? Because it's a lot of details. When you check out the detail of his pot, his work, you can like it distracts you because the content is kind of shocking. It's a lot of, you know, things going on there. But that's not fit my personality. I want people to come see the color and say, oh, it's so colorful. We make them with the pixel, make them to want to come close to see each piece. But in the meanwhile, I want them to have a little bit fun, like solve the puzzle, like look at my piece. I don't want to distract them with something like a little bit awful or something. So it's just because underneath the work is a lot of labor-intensive work. It's my own injury, and I just want to. But the work itself, I want to show people it's just a moment of enjoy the moment, or like a moment of happiness, something like that. Yeah, this is pretty much the whole process of making these two pieces. So it's also I'm talking about it. It's the frame. With every a lot of people help me, but we bought the plywood and MDF board from the Home Depot, and then my professor helped me cut it, and then just my boyfriend helped me to glue them together. So it's a lot of people even help me to finish this piece. So it's not just my own person, the intensive labor, also with somebody help, like literally hands-on help me. And then we are making these pieces, I also get a lot of help from our classmates, because in the beginning I have a lot of difficulty and thinking about it, how to glaze it. And then it's each single pieces. I don't want them to glaze to stick together. I want each one to be individual. So when I need to make sure how they can be arranged inside the kiln, so it's not gonna be fall out, like touch each other, they attach each other. So I got a lot of feedback from my professors, from my my classmates. So this is, I want to consider it just so it's my work. I want to consider it the indirect labors of myself and a group of other people. Yeah, that's all about my work I'm talking about today. I'm open for questions right now. Yeah.
Are they attached to each other?
They are attached by the synthetic, graph, like for the ceramic tiles, yes. But it's not, but before I attach them together, it's individual pieces.
Yeah, I saw them.
Oh, okay. Yes, please.
Were there any other kind of shapes you were thinking about before you decided to be?
Yeah, I was thinking about like this, the real pixel, like square, but I think, you know, I also think about bricks, like construction, so I decided to use this shape. Yeah. Okay.
Well, first of all, your work is beautiful, Peichao. And I wanted to know, like, you know, you have a sort of a connection to Hyun's installation as well, where it's about happiness and doing what you love. And I wanted to know if there were any moments in the process where you may have felt overwhelmed, or if you felt an artist block, and if you have advice for people on how to overcome that artist block, if you ever did feel that in your process.
Oh, actually, yeah. I have a lot of, you know, the difficulties, you know, in the, I feel overwhelmed. So first off, it's so many pieces. I need to, in the beginning, I need to figure out how to glaze them. So even the underglaze look like just brush on, but you know, different color of different underglaze, they have different texture. Some of the color is really easy to apply on it, but some color make me, you know, have some difficulty. Even though I work a long time, but I couldn't get too many pieces at that time. So it's already a lot of, you know, the feel like frustrated. And then when it comes to the glazing process, you know, more headache. So I need to figure out what I want to brush it on or dip it in, or and how it's gonna be stand, and then make sure clean. They can, you know, next to each other, not be connected together like in the kiln. So yeah, this is a lot of things to overcome. But how did I overcome it? Just I mean, through practice, like text out, make a little like couple pieces of the glaze, see the color, underglaze and glaze, see the color, you know, test it out, see the color, if I like it or not. And then I try different technique of glazing, and then to decide which one is the most practical for glaze these pieces, you know, so many pieces. So yeah, this is just and then the most important thing, I think, should really everybody enjoy what you're doing. Though it's a lot of, you know, the pimple person, everybody else is here, so a lot of things, you know, it's just a lot of headache. But I guess, you know, under the pimp, everybody really enjoy doing that. It's really, you know, your love and your passion really help you to go to, you know, to overcome every difficulties.
I've got a question for
Yes.
you. So, in the last talk, Kang was saying he went into ceramics because you didn't paint. So,
Yeah, I'm the girlfriend.
as a painter, you paint. I see these as paintings. Have you come into like a different understanding or appreciation of two-dimensional art by doing these? Because to me, these are paintings, and they speak of minimalism, and they speak of the history of painting, even though they're made of ceramic. So I see you definitely as a painter.
Thank you. So actually, yes, I want to, because it's ceramics, but I say I want to make it like 2D, is more like a 3D, because I want to really, it's on the wall, it's all like a reference to the paintings. Even it's just like I paint with ceramics, just not, you know, the oil, or I paint with ceramics. So speaking about what Kang talking about it, I think I'm a good painter for sure. Yeah, and yes, but I think I make better ceramics. I mean, okay, Hannah.
So I know your intention with this was to keep it really light and fun, and you wanted people to feel joy when they looked at it, but I'm almost reminded of Yayoi Kusama.
Yeah, Kusama.
How it's just the same like shape repeated in a fashion where at first glance, like I feel so much joy just as the intended, but as I've sat here staring at it, it almost becomes that overwhelming feeling. And I'm wondering too if like you had any studies of color theory with this, and like there was intention with putting it against a white background as well, because I was just trying to figure out what it was and I wasn't sure.
Yeah, good question. Yes, you know, because I want to use like red color. You know, this people always say, you know, the low fire clay with this underglaze have a little bit plastic feeling. It's not like a high end, you know, the clay body or like a feeling, but that's exactly what I want. I want something really colorful, so I want to against, you know, the white walls, the white frame. So about speaking of the color, so when I do the arrangement, I purposely didn't arrange any specific patterns or shapes. I just want to, you know, just try to make sure, try to arrange different color like maybe 5, 6 like pixels at one time to say, oh, this is the color what I want, and then just put them together, and then I just step far away to say, oh, this is the color what I want, and then just I do it. So I didn't really, I do a little bit research about color study, but I think it may not. But I just want to I just want to get a playful feeling, and I want to play with it. So get rid the color, the playful color, out of my piece. That's how I arrange the color, and then how I choose the white frame. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yes.
I want to ask about the kind of, because when Hannah brought up color, there is a difference between them in terms of color. And that's why I think she brought up color theory too, because when you step back, they kind of blend together to make a singular color. I want to know why this one is on the lighter side compared to that one. If I'm not the only one. Because this one tends to be, it's a more kind of yellow, you know. Yeah,
so in the beginning, I want to be, it's all yummy color, but I want to be one of this a little bit light, like yellowish, can, light up something. And then this one, I want to have a contrast a little bit. I'm not exactly darker, but, it's all bright color, it's all happy color, but I want to be, have a contrast with, the two pieces. And I noticed, if too much color put together, it's not really, that's not what I want. So I decided to this piece, I just relatively exclude some certain color, like purple and red, and maybe this kind of dark navy blue. Yeah, I use just a little bit here. So so to get this one is more like a light and bright. This one is more like red, purple, to make a little bit darker. So to see, people can see two different pieces and try to figure out, so, okay, what's this and then what's this? So I think it's I wanted them to solve some puzzle. So, yeah, that's my purpose.
Because that's what, honestly, when you ask people to step back, or just how you do it, you are trying to figure out, even when trying to come up with the sequence of how the bricks are placed, you're trying to figure out if there's a pattern to it. But I mean, one thing I noticed just in terms of colors, this one is made up of more secondary colors. So your greens, your oranges, and that one is your more primaries, your reds, your blues.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if that was,
Yes, intentional, yes.
Yeah, really smart.
Thank you.
Okay. This moment here, because I know we just talked about, there are different sort of color palettes within together. Was this intentional to include more of the brighter reds that you see on this side? You don't see it very much in the rest of the thing, but sort of on the bottom over here, you see more of the reds.
Yeah, so you see some red and some purple here. So it's called episode, right? So it's it's very, very, very subtle transition from here to here. So that's what I want, from here to here. So this is, I want a little bit transition. That's why, I guess you pointed out, yes, I purposely put there.
Good observation, yeah, you're definitely.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody.
Okay, so hi, my name is Nicole Tagalicud, and this is my piece Weight, and it's about societal pressures. So what inspired me to make this body of work is looking at the BFA class from the previous years. They made their works with their experiences with COVID and how it affected them in their schooling. It has also affected us too, but then I was thinking in my life, something that I personally have been experiencing is societal pressures, I guess, pretty much from my parents and how they, I'm not sure if other people here in the same room have gone through that, but like they, or through my schooling, they kind of just, they're like, oh, it's like, you've been in school for a while. It's like, why aren't you graduated by now? You know, it's like, I've been in school for 6 years, and it's like, society says, you know, it's like to graduate in 4, and like to fit this timeline. And it's like, I know they mean well, you know, it's like they want me to be successful and have a career with the degree and stuff. But then like with having those pressures, it did kind of like weigh down on me in my schooling. And gosh, I'm getting sorry. I'm like, so that's what I experienced, or what inspired me to make this work. And what I really like about clay is how you can turn like ideas into something physical, and how the clay is kind of like what is it? There's no limits to what you can do. Before ceramics, I used to draw and did digital art, and it wasn't until I was in my senior year of high school where I discovered clay, and I really loved just the feel and the texture of being able to mold the clay. And so when I did switch over to ceramics as my medium as an artist, I did make functional ware with like bowls and mugs. But then with my background in drawing and stuff, I did gravitate towards human figures in my work. So then I did like to incorporate that into my functional work. So they were very small mugs and stuff, but then I did want to attempt to make bigger work. So I did eventually, or over the years, I slowly, you know, I made like a self-portrait bust of myself. And this is the very first time that I've made full body sculptures with like, you know, all the limbs and stuff, let alone 3 of them. So it was definitely challenging, but then I'm very appreciative that I decided to do that for this. And how I wanted these sculptures to symbolize societal pressures is I didn't want them to symbolize any specific pressures, you know, like, but just to embody the feeling of having those pressures on you can kind of just like weigh you down. So that's why I made them in like resting positions. One like, yeah, on the bottom, she's kind of like sleeping with her arm under her head, and then there's the other body on top of her. And with my work, it's kind of surreal in a way, very distorted, in a way with like having the bodies not anatomically correct kind of ties into the idea of not fitting into society's expectations of, you know, like having the bodies to look a certain way. And or it's right, because like there's like this big arm compared to this small arm, and that body's kind of smaller than the other one. Let's see. And yeah, so I just wanted to kind of symbolize that feeling of those pressures weighing down on them. And yeah, some inspirations that I had from during doing this work was an artist named Beth Kavanagh. She came here a couple years ago, did a workshop, and she makes really amazing animal sculptures that symbolize like human psychology and human problems, and she adds human aspects to them in ways that aren't really found in normal animals, like human genitalia and stuff. Another artist that I'm really appreciative is Brad Taylor, who's sitting over there. How I made these works was through the pinching technique that he taught, which also Claire used for her work. Yeah, it's a really good method. It was pretty much like you just get pieces of clay and you flatten them and you just pinch them on top of each other, and it's really good because you get to work like layer by layer, and you're able to decide and choose the direction you want it to go and like the curves, and that's how I was able to make these figures, and they're all hollow. So I really liked that process, and that's definitely what helped me create these pieces. And yeah, so I want people to resonate with these, and that if no matter like what problems you're going through, you're not alone. I guess making something this kind of sad, I guess, through the process of working with the clay was very happy, and like just being able to talk to other people in the department, like in the like with glass and stuff. They shared how they relate to these kind of pressures that they experience. So it made me happy not being able to know that they also experienced that as well. And yeah, so like being vulnerable with this work wasn't easy, but I really enjoy the medium of clay and how it could be something so soft and kind of brittle in a way in the beginning, but then ends up being something completely strong and sturdy. And these figures, they weren't sculpted after anybody particularly, so they're kind of just from my imagination. They're not really, they're not based on anybody, so they're kind of just like anonymous people with like different hairstyles, and I just wanted to show diversity. With the clay, I used some stain oxides, which like very concentrated metallic kind of a pigments, and I just painted them on and wiped it off because with normal glaze, it's like I didn't want like a super shiny glossy finish to the pieces. I kind of wanted them to have like a realistic skin texture, and I think it does really well that with the pigments in the dark areas within the piece. Yeah, so in conclusion, I just want people to take away from the piece to not give up and to keep going. Even if people like to compare you to others, if you just keep on doing your things, like you're eventually going to get there, you know? It's like, it's like, don't be discouraged, and to keep doing your things. Yeah. And so I'd like to open this time for any questions. Noah?
So just on the topic of, pressure, were there any eye
Yes. So all of these pieces are actually separate. They're not. It was a huge challenge in making something like this, as I've never made them before. I was trying to, like, I knew for a fact I wanted the figures to be stacked on each other, but then like I didn't want the top one to be flat from like the wood or something if I made it separately. So that was definitely very challenging. And then like I tried to include a lot of details, like this figure sitting, she has like fragile feet. So it's a really nice detail. People love the feet, but then they're kind of just free floating, and kind of dangerous. Or like it was definitely scary handling it through the firings and just transporting it and everywhere. But it survived, made it here into the gallery, so happy about that. Oh, Suzanne?
I remember when I met you, you were doing fun and arm and abdomens, you know, and they weren't connected. But these look like each one of the figures is entirely one plant. Is that true? That must have been incredibly difficult.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it's like when our last semester for practice to make these things, I did make those body parts, separate body parts, like one arm and a leg. It was definitely challenging, just building upwards and attaching more and more clay to the piece, because, you know, it was like starting to take up a lot of space and kind of heavy. But the pinching technique is really helpful in that I saved a lot of clay and that it wasn't as heavy as like, because other ceramic people, they like to make like solid figures and they hollow it out, and like that's just a lot of work. But this saves, like, you know, a lot of time, so that definitely helps in the process. They are. Yeah, and actually the laying piece is actually in half. She's in two halves because there would have been no way for her to fit in the kiln if I had made it one piece. But then it was easy to transport it to having it in two separate sections, and it works out really well with the top figure hiding the seam of where it connects. Yeah. Hannah?
I remember at the beginning you had that theme of almost Tetris and then fitting into each other. I still feel a sense of that, especially in like the two laying on one another and the legs. Is that still involved in?
Oh, yes. So like the beginning of the semester, I did want to make sculptures based off of Tetris. It's one of my favorite games. And it just like, I really loved the idea of stacking. And like, just like how life can be very puzzling, I felt like the humans being the pieces can also tie in a way, or like relate to this piece too, because, you know, they're just trying to live life and just, you know, just fit in, I guess. And like, it does tie in with the Tetris idea I originally had, just not with being Tetris. But that was definitely a big inspiration of how I got the idea of the pressures, figuratively and physically, like weighing down and just stacking on to people. Yeah. Oh, Claire?
Yeah, so I just wanted to know, like, with the idea of like societal pressures, right? Like, you have this sculpture, we're all going to graduate soon, but like being an artist is not a very like traditional career choice. So like now, do you feel like do you still feel the weight of these pressures after you graduate as well, or do you now kind of feel like this is said and done now that you're graduating?
In a way, I do kind of feel those pressures because I'm like one of the only people in my family to be an artist, and they're just, you know, it's kind of like an unknown territory. Like my parents are immigrants, like they're not familiar. Like they know like the typical become a accountants, all of that, not artist stuff. I've kind of just accepted it with choosing art as a career, but so I personally feel like those pressures for me also coming to graduate aren't as heavy as it was before. I think being able to talk with others and just find out that I'm not alone, you know, it's like lots of people failed art history and you know, it's like you have classes that are hard, right? And like, so it's very motivating, I guess, or empowering to just to like know that others are going through things as well. Deborah?
Yeah, I have a question for you too, because the whole project started out of ideas with external pressure. But you're talking about getting to talk about empowerment just through knowing other people have gone through something, but is there a kind of empowerment in something this difficult and being able to pull it off that gives you confidence?
Oh, yes. Yes, that is true. I did not think it would be possible, to be honest. I don't know. It's like, yeah, being able to make something that you've never made before is definitely scary, and especially for a show where you only have like a limited amount of time. It's definitely empowering that I did pull it off with the help of many others. Loading it into the kilns, that was challenging. It's a team effort. I wouldn't have been able to do it alone. Yeah, I hope to make more complex figures in the future, though, maybe even bigger. I've learned a lot through this process, and like now I learned some techniques, like some things I could do to prep to make the process faster in sculpting, so it doesn't take as long. But yeah, yes. Any more questions?
So if anybody could get within a shot, like this. And then Christian, when you get done, you jump in too. So once again, congratulations to the no picture. We're just we're still on the video. We're going to say bye to your audience. So, but yeah, I don't even have my own phone to take a picture, but I'll get a picture of you all. So congratulations once again to the BFA class of 2022. You all did a great job. It's a beautiful show. The artist talks were really wonderful. So I think they were very engaging, and you all did a wonderful, wonderful job. So if anybody in the audience wants to hear the 2D talk, pretty soon that's going to be on the Art Gallery website along with the 3D talk. So, and please come see the show in person. So congratulations, BFA class 2022. Okay, with that, we're gonna conclude our talks today. So thank you all for coming and joining us. Okay.